Welcome to our house. This is the Screenplay Podcast. I'm your host, Evan Grenis, and with me as always, PGA Tour player Andrew Novak.
What's up, everyone? Preseason's over. We're coming back with the third episode of the season, and next time that they suit up, it'll be for real. So we're excited to talk some football with y'all.
Yeah, we got this podcast and one more before the season starts, before it kicks off on Thursday, September 5th, Ravens and Chiefs. And then we got a game on Friday, Packers, Eagles in Sao Paulo, Brazil. That'll be interesting to see. Fantasy drafts are happening now. You just had one. I got a few coming up. You were in a little bit different type of a league for this past draft. Do you want to explain that a little bit?
Yeah, it's just an auction league, but it's a keeper league as well. Basically, we do it. You can keep whoever you had on your team for 10 more than whatever you got them last year. I was not blessed to be in a position where I had somebody at great value. So that meant that I was going into the draft a little bit behind everyone else. Brees Hall went for $28 out of a $200 budget for one guy. I mean, that's huge advantage.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to find value elsewhere, which had to be a bit patient, but it worked out all right. So you gotta in an auction draft, you kind of have to pick your moments, and I thought I did an okay job with that. So
Yeah, a lot of different types of drafts out there. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at screenplay_podcast. New episodes every Wednesday, 8 a.m. on your favorite streaming platform. If you like what you guys are hearing, give us 5 stars, drop some comments, drop some likes. Let us know what you like, what you don't like. All right. Like you said, preseason's over. I got a couple takeaways. First off, I want to highlight Trey Lance going 5 interceptions in that last preseason game. I mean, what a great job the 49ers did. I mean, getting rid of Trey Lance for a 4th-round pick. Oh, it's amazing. And Jerry Jones
I mean,
says he
yeah,
would do the trade again.
they also ripped how many first rounders to move up to take him.
Yeah,
Not so
I
great,
mean,
but yeah.
Mac Jones and Justin Fields are better quarterbacks than Trey Lance, and they got 6th-round picks for them. So 49ers hit that up pretty well. 5 interceptions is pretty bad there. What's your biggest takeaway?
Yeah, I will say Trey Lance looked good running the ball. Maybe he'll be the fix for the Cowboys running back room. Maybe he can make that little move there.
Yeah,
My
what's your biggest takeaway from this preseason?
my biggest takeaway from the preseason, though, like we've talked about it in previous weeks, but there's so little uniformity between teams and how they're doing it. I'm seeing ones versus twos everywhere. Like it seems like every game, one team will have the starters and the other team has the backups, and so it's starting like all these starters are looking good. Like the Panthers played their starters in the third game, and Bryce Young marches down the field like one drive, 6 for 8, 70 yards. Like it was nothing. And it's just like, well, they're playing backups, and we're seeing this everywhere. I feel like every year, the preseason, you can't take anything from it really. Like it is what it is. It's just preseason. This year, even less so because there's you're not seeing ones versus ones, even if it's just for a couple drives. It's like ones versus twos everywhere. You got like third string and reserve playing against twos and stuff. It's all over the place because different teams kind of have different strategies with what they're doing as their 3-game preseason prep, and it's made it very difficult to really take anything from it so far.
Yeah, I agree. I said that before preseason started. I really can't take much from it other than that there's some football on TV. For me, it's I was going through the uh the divisions, and I mean, unless you're on the Patriots, the Titans, or the Giants, unless you're a fan of one of those 3 fan bases, I can find a reason to be excited this season. So for 29 of the 32 teams, um, I feel like there's hope and some excitement in the building going into the season. You don't agree with that?
I don't think the Titans are quite as bad as you might think they are.
Give it a couple weeks. I can see them holding on in the beginning, and then after week 6 or 7, it starts coming apart. But yeah, I mean, looking through the league, there is almost every team you can make a reason why like they're going to make a run this year.
I mean, I think the Panthers are a worse team than the Titans this year.
Okay, I forgot. You know,
But
I didn't add Panthers to the list.
but
Put them on there. Yeah.
but yes. Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think the Giants defense could be exciting, but it's also not very exciting if you give up 10 points and still lose. So, uh,
Patriots had that problem last year.
yeah, it's going to be so ugly for them. Neighbors will be fun to watch, but he's going to be getting the Garrett Wilson treatment, like 15 targets kind of thing. And it's just like 10 of the passes aren't first row of the stands, and it's just terrible.
Yeah.
But,
All right. Past couple of weeks we've been talking about contracts, wide receivers, holdouts. So CeeDee Lamb got his deal done, 4 year, 136 million. Um, I heard it's been affecting drafts a little bit this week.
mhm,
Um, Instead of going number 2 off the board this week, he's been, dropping down a spot or two,
yeah,
just because of the contract situations. But
yeah.
now that
We
he's
saw
signed,
that.
yeah, is he back to number 1 on the board for wide
Well,
receivers?
I was going to take your point. We saw that in our auction draft. He actually did go for less than Tyreek Hill and actually slightly less than Amon Ra. So there is definitely, auction sometimes fluctuates a little bit, but there is a little bit that was baked into there. Um, I was interested to see the 4 for 136. He actually went under that Justin Jefferson number we had talked about. I think it was either last week or the week before. Whether we thought he would fall exactly in line with that, you thought that he might be wanting more than that.
I guess
Potentially.
what I've heard was it was coming down to that it wasn't the money, it was the years that CD
Okay.
wanted a 3 year contract so he can get, a big payday in a
A
couple of years.
sooner
And
again.
the
Yeah. Okay.
Cowboys wanted a 5 year long-term deal.
Mhm.
So I guess settling on the 4 is the
Yep.
big issue that came out. Which is
Yep.
fine. I mean, he should be happy with that contract. They were going to pay
No,
him.
for
They
sure.
had to.
Yeah.
Got a couple others here. Jamar Chase is practicing, but no new contract. I think if this
I
was a
did see
different, I think say that.
I did see something just came out about. I think Zach Taylor, the coach, was basically saying he's expected to be playing week 1, but
Yeah,
that could also just be coach speak.
I just kind of find this as I feel like if this was another franchise, Jamar Chase would be getting his contract. I mean, they drafted him. He outperformed his rookie contract. It's early, but they got to pay him. The Bengals, other than Joe Burrow, I mean, being the most well-paid quarterback in the league right now, the Bengals have been notoriously cheap, and this is kind of showing it a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, it would definitely like he has 2 years left, correct? So like,
He has a 4th year and then a
or
fifth
a
year,
fourth in
fifth year
a
option,
team
which would
option,
pay him
right?
like 22
Okay, so,
million.
yeah, because he's first round. So, yeah, I mean, theoretically, like looking to get that waived, so then he could get paid earlier. Yeah, I mean, I get it. I don't know. It would definitely be an interesting precedent. Like, that would not be a common thing at all to be done. But how many Jamar Chases have come through recently?
Yeah.
I don't know. I still feel like he um, plays out the season, but it's a tough situation because like anytime you're in like one of these holdout positions, I mean, this is one of your best players. Like if he's out, like I mean, T Higgins is good, but that Bengals team is certainly taken down a notch without him on the field.
So will he take a hit in your mind for fantasy draft because of this?
Maybe there's so many top stud wide receivers right now. Like theoretically, it could just happen without people like realize like he's that good. But then there's so many other good wide receivers at the top. Like he easily could slide a slot or two because you're like, oh, why risk it when I could just take Amon Ra? Why risk it when I've got
So
CD and Tyreek right
you could
there?
see him
Like,
falling down to 8, 9, 10.
see, that's where it gets tough because like if I'm looking at ADPs, like those guys I just said, and then I could see them like, behind Brees and Bijan. But like if it's coming down to Jamar and AJ Brown, like
Okay, yeah, no, yeah,
I'm probably like
right.
I'm just gonna take Jamar at that point. Like there is a point where it's like I'm taking that risk. Like
Yep,
I could see just looking at this, I could see as far as 8
yep.
realistically. I could see
Okay.
him behind CMC, Tyreek, CD, Bijan, Brees, Justin Jefferson, and Amon Ra. But once it starts getting to like the AJ Brown, Saquon, like
Yeah, you're taking
I'm taking Jamar at that point.
yep.
And if I'm sitting at 7 or 8 and Jamar falls to me, I'm loving that
Yep.
because you that's insane value. Like if this comes to nothing, that's insane value getting him there. When without this whole situation, like I mean, I've seen people arguing that he's like number 1 or number 2 right now, like overall. So yeah, it's a very tight top of the board right now. That's for sure.
And then the last one is Brandon Ayuk. He went with the team on the past trip, on the past game. He's been there. The only other team I hear talking about it is the Steelers. I do think this one affects this player's stock a little bit because whether he ends up on the 49ers or the Steelers is going to be a major difference in fantasy points, I would think.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. Like
I'm still on the side of
I feel like
he's
I
going
feel
to
like
be with
he'd
the
get
49ers and
yeah,
he's going to get points.
yeah,
I would love to get Ayuk in the second round.
yeah.
Doesn't take a hit in my mind, even if he misses 1 week. But what about you?
Yeah, I definitely think like I'd much rather him on the 49ers. It's like I think he'd have similar ish volume. Like he doesn't get crazy volume in San Fran, but he's just unbelievably efficient with it. Whereas like Steelers, like again, I don't think he'd get insane volume because it's Arthur Smith. I mean, he honestly might just ride the bench for Arthur Smith. Who knows what that guy's doing? But for the Steelers, like they're not going to probably throw a ton, but he's going to be significantly less efficient there. So yeah, if you're an Ayuk owner or looking to target him, you definitely want him staying with the 49ers. And the longer it goes on, the more likely it seems that he probably will be there to me. Um, but it has been quite the saga this offseason.
Yeah. I mean, just thinking about the Ayuk trade, I was thinking about this in the car. How do teams contact other teams? Because in my head, there's a picture of just 32 landline phones,
Yes.
all with the team's logo on it. And they're just got to pick it up and they're like, this landline goes to the Steelers. Hello, Steelers. Are you interested in Ayuk? But I know
Yeah.
that's not the case. I know that can't be happening.
Yeah.
Do all the GMs have each other's phone numbers and they text each other? Do they call them? No one's ever told
So
this to me, but in my head, I just want to imagine there's a bunch of landlines and they're just
I have the answer for you,
give
actually.
it to me. Let's hear it.
I reached out to a source.
Okay.
He was a long time head of security for an NFL franchise.
Okay.
And he says that a lot of trades actually rarely initially even involve the GM, especially any sort of initial communication. Typically, it is done from heads of personnel, whether that may be broken down. It depends on the team, but typically there may be like a head of offensive personnel, head of defensive personnel, whatever. Um, but obviously, before any trades going through, they'll discuss it with GM and ownership. But ultimately, it's typically middle or upper level managers within the personnel departments that do the trades, or at least are communicating. So that would typically be either phones in their office or cell phones. A lot of them just have the cell, like it's the same number, just route. If they're in the office, it'll go to that. If they're out, just route as a cell phone. So
Hey, hey,
nothing too
hey,
exciting, but
what's the fax number over in Pittsburgh? You gotta send them a fax on Ayuk. I just,
nothing super exciting there, I guess. But yeah, it's definitely on draft day. It's funny to think of
yeah.
that. Just sit everybody crowded around a phone, just waiting for it to ring. Like, please, we want to trade back. We do not want to pick here.
Did you see this story? Dalvin Cook working out for the Cowboys.
I did see that, and as someone that just went out and got Rico Dowdle, I am slightly concerned, although
Mm,
not majorly concerned. Dalvin looked quite washed last year in limited action. I If they end up signing him, I think it would be more of a very much reserve deal. I don't see Dalvin getting 200 plus carries, 200 plus touches or something this year. That just seems completely unrealistic um, for him from what I saw last year. Uh, it's the Cowboys. They love making a little splash, so I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think he's the answer at that position for the Cowboys.
yeah.
Did you see the thing about Trent Williams today,
I
talking
have,
about how he may not be showing up?
well,
Uh, I mean, if that ends up going through for the 49ers, I mean, big problems on that offensive line.
yeah. That takes a hit for basically all of their weapons. If Trent Williams is out, yeah, they need to get that deal done. I believe Trent Williams and Ayuk have the same agent, so I wonder if that.
Yeah,
I
leverage
w-
Trent to try and get Brandon settled. That Hey, that's some serious. Yeah, yeah. I see where you're going with that.
Yeah, I heard that they have the same agent.
Conspiracy.
A lot of times it's just as simple as like, hey, like getting two deals done at the same time. It
Mhm.
takes a while. But
Yeah.
yeah, it could be leverage. Let's get to the Steelers. We keep mentioning them. Who gives Pittsburgh a better chance to win? Not who's going to start, not who's going to play. Who gives them a better chance to win?
I think it's Russell Wilson.
Okay.
I think
I don't think it matters, honestly.
I
But
think yeah, I mean the defense gives them the best chance to win.
exactly.
So I think Justin Fields' little fumbling issue is against that. I mean, Russ taking unnecessary sacks isn't going to help either, but both of them hold the ball forever.
Yep.
So it's not really a good situation. But their most dynamic player on offense, their best playmaker is George Pickens.
Mm-hmm.
He's a deep threat. Bottom line, Russell Wilson still can throw a good deep ball. He has a better downfield arm accuracy than Justin Fields. He's going to be putting the ball on the sideline and giving George Pickens a chance to make a play. So I think that's the quarterback you go with. I outside of packages, I don't see Justin Fields really playing unless it's like an injury or something.
Yeah.
I think he'd
Do you
be
think
like
Fields going to get
maybe some goal line or something if they wanted to do
can you
something.
see Fields getting any starts this season without Russ getting hurt?
I think stuff would have to go like significantly wrong
Okay.
because I really don't. I think with that defense, like I think they're going to be a solid enough team that they're not going to be getting like
Right.
beat terribly. And I don't know. I mean, I guess Arthur Smith did do some jumping around with quarterbacks last year, but on like I think the quarterbacks he had last year were actually worse than Russell Wilson and Justin
Oh no,
Fields.
I agree. I saw this today.
So
The Arizona Cardinals cut Desmond Ritter,
yeah,
who was starting for an NFL franchise last year.
yeah. So exactly. Yeah. I mean, it's I think I think Russ will have a fine year. I don't think he's going to play bad enough where like I mean, there's definitely going to be some contingent that just loves Justin Fields in that fan base. That's going to be like, oh, let's see Fields or something. But I think it's Russell's job for
Yeah.
sure.
I've been hearing some talk of this. Do you think Russell Wilson is a Hall of Famer at this
Yeah.
point and going forward in the future?
So I thought that was a super interesting thing. I actually like looked into it a little bit.
Like early on
Um,
in his career, 5 years ago, you're like thinking,
mhm,
yeah, obviously he's on pace to be a Hall of
yeah.
Fame quarterback. And then you have the Denver situation.
So
You have
so
moving
I
to
got a few stats here on Russell
yeah.
Wilson. How many Pro Bowls do you think he's made?
Um, 4.
9. Crazy.
Wow. Oh, I
Dude
get.
made the NFC, I guess, was like soft with quarterbacks for a little while. Like all the quarterbacks were kind of stacked up in the AFC, but still, like 9 Pro Bowls is really, really impressive.
That's way
Like
more than
obviously,
I
this is
thought.
from
Wow.
Seattle. Um, how many times do you think he was a first team All Pro though?
Gonna have to tell me that
Never,
one.
not
Oh.
once. And he does not have a single MVP vote his entire career either, which is crazy. I mean, 9 Pro Bowls and none of that. It makes for a very odd sort of resume. Obviously, the one Super Bowl and getting to another like definitely helps. Some of the success those Seattle teams had like were huge, but a lot of that was kind of on the back of Marshawn Lynch, a good run game, and then Legion of Boom, elite defense, Bobby Wagner
Hmm.
doing that.
I'd like to
I was
see.
I
I'd
was
like to
kind of
see.
comparing.
Yeah, compare. Who are you comparing this to?
So I actually found a comparison I kind of liked. Big Ben, very very different player, but he never won an MVP. But he played on some teams with some solid defenses. With, you know, he put up some good numbers, but it's kind of a similar sort of thing where they did that. But the big difference is Big Ben has that second Super Bowl. And I think that's like a huge separating factor. I think if Russ can put it together enough where he can make a run or two with the Steelers, then I think that could kind of get him over, like, get a second. If he did something crazy, got a second Super Bowl, that would definitely make the difference because I don't think it's like out of the question that he's near that fringe level.
Yeah, no, I think that second Super Bowl does it. I really want to see. I believe Eli Manning's going to get into the Hall of Fame just
Yeah.
because of
Because
the
he has
fact that
two.
yeah, but he also beat the Patriots twice. But
Yeah,
he
right,
has
right.
two. But when you look at the numbers. Eli Manning has 57,000 yards. Russell Wilson has 43,000. They
Mhm,
both have two Super Bowl appearances. Eli's
mhm.
got that second win though. As far as numbers, touchdown, interceptions, passer rating, Wilson's a little better.
Yeah.
So if Eli doesn't get in, there's no chance Russell Wilson's getting in. Um, but if Eli gets in and Russell Wilson, he needs another. At the moment he's at right now, I don't think you can put him in. But
Yeah. I kind of came to the same conclusion. He needs another push with the obviously the whole Broncos thing did not work out. He needs another push with the Steelers, I think, to kind of get him over the top there.
yep. All right. Let's get to the Jets. Whenever I'm watching interviews with the Jets, whether it's Aaron Rodgers, Robert Saleh, it feels like they're speaking words, but they're not saying what's in their head. Um, I feel like Saleh's gonna come out in like 30 years and be like, yeah, like I was the head coach of the Jets, but I didn't make any decisions. Like Rodgers was coaching the team. Like uh
I
and like
I
he's I
agree with that.
he
Yeah.
can't like come out and say it because it'll affect his job now. If he gets fired, it'll affect a future job, like a future
Yep.
hiring. But I can see him in 30 years just coming out and being like, yeah, like when I was coaching the Jets, pretty much Rodgers made all the decisions on what was going on, and then I just answer the questions at the podium to back that up. Like,
I think last year, 100% I'm with you. There's no way like you've got Alan Lazard, Randall Cobb, all his like group of boys showing up and all playing on the team without him like definitely doing all that. I think this year it's obviously looking like a little bit different. You know, they're bringing Mike Williams in there. It seems like a little bit less of his old guard. So I don't know if maybe Joe Douglas has taken over a little bit more or he's gotten less free reign. I don't know. But I absolutely agree with that statement from last year
yeah.
or for last year.
All right,
But
that's enough of news. Let's get into the good stuff. Let's get into fantasy. Let's talk some drafting strategies for drafts this week. Let's start with we're gonna kind of run through this from you got an early draft pick to you got a late draft pick. So let's start with like the 1 through 3 spot. If you're here, you're probably looking at someone like CMC, Tyreek, CeeDee Lamb. Uh,
mhm.
who are you taking, and what's your strategy kind of going into that second, third round there?
Yeah, I think generally a lot of people are taking McCaffrey first. So then if you're one of the other two spots, you're probably just taking whichever of these stud wide receivers you want the most. This is a position where you're essentially getting whoever you want from that. I mean, I guess if you're three and you really want Tyreek and he goes, then you're missing out on that. But you're going to get an absolute stud, and then you've got to wait a while and turn around at the turn. I think if you get McCaffrey at one, things are kind of a bit weird at the turn with the wide receivers. So it's kind of one of those things where if you get McCaffrey, you might end up looking like tight end with maybe your second or third pick or in another running back or something. Like things are a little weird near the turn. So it kind of it you might be looking pretty deep before you get to the wide
They
receivers.
are
Whereas if you
looking
get
weird around the turn, which is why I kind of think if you're in the 1 through 3 spot, like you get your top end guy, and then you hit a quarterback there in round 2 or 3 and
yeah,
get one of the top
you
guys off the board,
yeah, you could
A
definitely do
Josh
that
Allen,
on that. Yeah,
someone like that.
yeah. I
Just
think there's
because
some
that wide
solid
receiver
running
market
backs.
right there is just
Yeah.
you're
I think there's some good running backs near that turn though. So if you do end up with that two or three and you get a wide receiver, I think it sets up actually kind of nice because then you can turn around and get a running back. I mean, Josh Jacobs right now is looking insane potentially
mhm,
uh with
Dylan.
AJ Dillon now is looks like he's going to be out for the year. So that could be a huge steal and a pretty good offense there right at the turn
Yep.
if you have one of those picks. So you got to be loving something like that if you're there.
All right, 4 through 6. You're probably looking Jamar Chase, Amon Ra, Justin
This is
Jefferson,
yeah. This is
Bijan.
where yeah.
What who do you like in this middle ground? And what's your plan going into rounds 2 and 3?
Yeah, I mean, this is where you're going to start seeing the other kind of you can call them tier one with McCaffrey, but like maybe that second little mini tier of running backs going with Bijan and Brees. You might start seeing some of that, but you can still kind of turn around and still find maybe like a Devontae Adams waiting for you or another running back like an A chain there. Like it's, I feel like you have a ton of freedom in this spot to like You still have a few of the top guys around. You might get lucky and somebody fall. Like it's possible you could be in that group and have like a CeeDee get to you. I don't think McCaffrey or Tyreek's probably getting out of the first three, but anybody else is pretty much potentially on the table in any of those picks. So I feel like when you're in this part, kind of in the middle of the round, you have to be flexible because no matter what side it is, you're always going to have a decent amount of picks between each pick. So you kind of have to stay flexible. Whereas, when you're on the ends, when you're on those turns, you can kind of
Yep.
plan out a little bit better where you're going to be for your next pick when you're on the double.
All right. You drop down to the 7 through 9 spot. Still looking at Jamar, Bijan, Breeze. This is where AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Barkley start coming in.
Mhm.
I think that 7 through 9 spot, it's gonna be you're gonna a lot of running backs are gonna go there. I believe in the
Yeah.
first round. And I think it's gonna be super tempting. It's gonna come back around and you're gonna want to go RB again. I don't like doing double RB off the rip and then waiting very long time to the third round. I think you got to get someone other than a running back in that second round.
Yeah. I mean, if you end up there, so then you'd be looping back around at like you'd be around what 33, 34 when you're looking at wide receiver. You'd be looking at kind of like a Michael Pittman, Cooper Kupp, Brandon Ayuk, Mike Evans as like your wide receiver one. That's really not that bad. If
Right.
you get decent value running back, that's not horrible. But I don't know if I'd be reaching for like a Travis Etienne like super early in the second round. That's I mean, good player, but you're banking on a lot of touchdown efficiency again. I, that's a little tough. I think the most pivotal pick of the first round is maybe that ninth slot. I think the first eight is pretty clear. Like I ran through it earlier, but I think those first eight are pretty set. I mean, nine. I'm looking at this ADP thing has AJ Brown as that ninth player, but I could see like even like Garrett Wilson at 13 could be going nine.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, there's maybe some people that like Kyron Williams a bunch that are still taking him like back half the first round. Like I I feel like there's going to be people really kind of all over the place once you get there.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like that's where it really starts opening up a bit. And if you're picking around maybe 11, 12, 13, it's going to be pretty tough to know exactly what you're going to be looking at when your pick comes around.
Yeah. And then we'll go into those last couple spots. This is where Marvin Harrison Jr. might come into the mix, 10 through 12.
Mhm.
Garrett Wilson, Brown, Barkley,
Yeah.
Gibbs. I think if you're in one of these 10 through 12 spots, you gotta grab one of those you got to grab one of the top end wide receivers, a Garrett Wilson, an AJ Brown, and then there's a small jump down to a Marvin Harrison, a Puka, Devontae Adams, Drake London. I just don't think you want Marvin Harrison, Puka, Devontae, or Drake as your number one wide receiver. Um, how do you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm pretty against like ever having a strategy in which I automatically know exactly what positions I'm going to be going at in a draft because I don't ever want to miss out on value because I'm locked in to a specific strategy of what I'm doing. Like especially early on, I will always just take whoever I have as best player available. Like first three rounds, I don't care if I go three running backs first or three wide receivers first if I'm getting insanely good value because I'll make it up position wise later. And if I have that insane value, like that can be my edge right there.
Yeah,
Like I if I I'll find my numbers late if I have to, but I'd rather reach in the seventh round a little bit than reach in the first or second round just to make something work. Like I don't want to settle early. I'll settle later if I have to, but I don't want to settle early in drafts.
right. Um, let's get into some questionable draft choices. There's some players here that have some injury concerns that may have either brought them up or brought them down in fantasy rankings. I just want to get whether you're high or low on them. You think drafting them is worth it or not? In the NFL season, you get 18 weeks. In fantasy, you kind of get like 14-ish. So when someone's out for a number of weeks, it affects that fantasy a a lot harder than the full season. Let's start with the Browns. We got Jerome Ford, Nick Chubb. So Nick Chubb's definitely going to miss the first 4 games. Coming back from a
Mhm.
pretty nasty injury. I'm very high on Ford to play more than just the first 4 games. What about you?
Yeah, it was such a nasty injury, and it's like, I mean, if he's not even back yet, like there's probably going to be a little ramp up time. I mean, it's possible he could be back week 5, week 6, but like, what are we getting? 60%? Are we getting 40% of him? Are we getting 80%? Like, I don't. It's not a guarantee he's even going to be. It's not like when he comes back, he's 100% good to go, 25 carries, just steamrolling. Like, I
Right.
think Jerome Ford's a great value right now, especially because they just got rid of Deontay Foreman, who was
Hmm.
looking like he might be splitting work. I'm thinking Jerome Ford's looking like a great value right now. Um, you can get him probably, what's that, ninth round right now, so
Yeah. All
eighth
right.
round maybe. But
Hollywood Brown out 4 to 6 weeks. I was kind of excited to see him play in the Chiefs offense. Still might be a big part of it, but 6 weeks, that's half your fantasy season. Where are you on
wait,
him?
well, Hollywood, that was from the injury though. I think they're looking at Hollywood might miss a couple weeks. If he
I'm
misses
seeing,
6, that's
I'm
crazy.
seeing, I'm seeing 4 to 6 weeks. What are
From now or from when he got hurt?
for the season?
Oh, wow. Okay. I thought it was 4 to 6 weeks once he got hurt. So then it would, that'd be a couple weeks, maybe the first 2 weeks of the season. Obviously, this is the kind of guy you want in your offense to take the top off, especially when you got Patrick Mahomes. The longer Hollywood stays out, the better that is for Xavier Worthy. We're seeing that in drafts already. Like he's
Yeah,
moving up the ranking. Worthy went for I think what like 11 or 12 in my redraft auction league, which was pretty significant. I want to say he went for like within $5 of what Michael Pittman went, which is crazy for a guy that was pretty far down the boards not too long ago before he went off in the preseason. So um, I think Hollywood, it is, it's a shoulder thing, kind of like Debo last year. Like, I guess typically it doesn't like linger, although Debo did kind of re-injure his, but like I'd usually rather like a shoulder than a hamstring at least, maybe. But hopefully that doesn't, carry on into the season.
yeah. Jonathan Brooks placed on the PUP. That's at least 4 weeks. I'm actually down on him. By the time he gets up and gets going,
Yeah,
I thought he was going to be a good player. He still might be, but like you said, the Panthers stink. And if he's hurt and the Panthers are bad, like why rush
yeah.
him back in? So,
Yeah, if the Panthers are
um,
1-7, like what? Why
yeah.
bother?
So I'm kind of
Yeah,
down on
I
him.
agree.
TJ Hawkinson, I'm down on him. I think by the time
Mhm.
he gets back, the Vikings might be out of contention. Uh, Mike Williams, how are you feeling on him with the Jets?
It looks like he's pretty healthy from everything I'm seeing. Now that could change after like 3 plays with him.
Yeah,
But the player profile with an Aaron Rodgers seems insane. I mean, how many times have we seen Aaron Rodgers kind of look at a wide receiver in the red zone, just 2-step back shoulder fade, or like there? It's not unreasonable to think that Mike Williams could be like a 10 touchdown guy this year. I mean, he may not put up huge numbers, but he might just be that guy in the red zone. Like Aaron Rodgers has no problem checking out of anything, and just if you give me a chance, I'm just going to put it up to my guy.
I feel like he's one
Uh,
of those names that I've been burned too many times in
yes,
fantasy. So
and
it's like I'm just scared to hit the
yeah,
draft button on him.
he's absolutely like. I mean, he might just do nothing this year. He could
Right.
just get hurt week 1 and just be out. But I do see the value in the player. It's just like it's almost like at this point it's like a Will Fuller type situation where it's just like, I mean, it it's baked into the value, I guess, but like also is it even worth it still? You know?
Yeah. How about Josh Downs? Ankle injury, but
Yeah.
showed a lot of promise last year. I'm still up on him.
Mhm.
Once he comes back, he could be a great flex option in your lineup
Yeah.
if you
I
got him on your team.
I think for the most part he'd be like a PPR only kind of guy for me. Obviously ankle injury is not really what you want to see with a guy that's, quick, shifty like that, a lot of change of direction, but it sounds like he'll be okay. Uh, probably at least by like week 2, 3. Um, the only thing I'm concerned about, like with that Colts offense, I just don't know how much they're even going to really throw the ball. Like they have Richardson, he's going to get a bunch of carries. They have Jonathan Taylor, who's going to get a ton of carries. Like
When you had
they're not going to be.
Pittman in the first 4 weeks last year when Richardson played, did plenty fine.
That's fine, but that's what I'm saying though. Pittman's going to like if they throw like 25 times a game and Pittman's getting like a decent chunk of those targets, how many end up getting to Downs eventually? Like I just Downs is the kind of guy that you want peppered with targets. He's like a slot under, kind of underneath guy. Like, if he gets like 6 or 7 targets, he might catch 5 or 6 balls, but it's probably only going to be for about 50 yards. So you really need it to be PPR, I think, for him to really feel good about that. I don't hate the player. I'm a little concerned about the offense and situation that he's in. That's
Yeah.
all.
All right, let's get into the diamonds in the rough. This is players, any position rounds 10 and later. You can't win your draft in the first 3 rounds. Um, this is where you win your draft. Round 10 and after, you're looking for that Kyron Williams or that Puka Nakua. Uh, I think they say this in Wolf of Wall Street, but it's like a stock, by the time you hear it, it's already too late.
Mhm.
So who are these guys that we haven't heard of yet, that are late, that you got to get on your team, that are going to hit this year, that could win you your fantasy draft?
Yeah, so I'm looking at guys that are potentially the guy in their offense, or could be an offense that has potential to be good. And one name I'm looking at's a rookie, Brian Thomas Jr. He has a very real shot of being the number one wide receiver in an offense run by a pretty good quarterback in Trevor Lawrence. He has a freakish athletic profile, long speed, big, can jump. He can go up and get it. Think a little bit in like a DK Metcalf-ish mold. And you can get him pretty late. I think he's definitely worth a shot. And especially early on, if he hits some big plays early, I mean, there's going to be people scrambling to get him.
Yeah. If you're looking for tight ends, Mike Gesicki, down there at ADP 213 is tight end 1 with the Bengals. Way down there. Not going to be a top tight end on the year, but if you're looking for a tight end really late, check out that. I like Jalen Wright in Miami, ADP 150. With a player like him and his speed, I think Mike McDaniel is gonna find a way to use it. He was kind of like that Chan. People didn't really know who he was, and then got into that
Mhm.
Miami offense and put up. I think he had a week with 50 something points, didn't he?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I got Denver.
Yep. I also really like Luke McCaffrey in Washington. ADP 207. I believe he's listed as the 3, but I think by a couple weeks he might even be the 2 there in Washington.
They just
Um,
got rid of Dotson. Yeah, they just got rid of Dotson. I
yeah,
think it'll probably shuffle in at the 2 a little bit because it'll definitely be McLaurin and then probably like De'Ami Brown and I guess probably him coming in as well.
yeah.
But yeah,
He could definitely work there with Jaden Daniels in Washington. And then last one I'm going to say here is Kamani Vidal. He's third in line with the Chargers, ADP 181. But with that, how that offense works, I expect him to have a significant role with that
yeah.
team in that offense. You got anyone
Vidal
else?
also he also rested that last Chargers preseason game with so did Edwards and J.K. Dobbins, but it clearly shows that they have confidence in what they have in the player there, and they're obviously trying to keep him healthy for the season.
Yeah.
I've got 2 more, not as far down the board with this one, but Rico Dowdle. I've got his ADP at 128 right now. Uh, this is a Dallas offense run by Brian Schottenheimer. He's had 4 different top 5 rushing offenses in the NFL. Uh, this is a Dallas offense that, yes, that offensive line is not as good as it's been, but still should be good. It's a Dallas offense that has insane amount of touches vacated by Tony Pollard leaving, and he's going to have Ezekiel Elliott, who is a dinosaur at this point. I mean, he can catch and he can block, I guess, but uh, there's absolutely some room to be had in this backfield, and he could end up being an absolute league winner if he ends up being a you know solid player that's getting all the touches and the number one in Dallas. And then lastly, I'm gonna go uh, down at where is he 160? Where is he? 159 right now. Dontavion Wicks,
Mm,
wide receiver 63 on this. He is maybe most people say he's about the fourth guy in Green Bay right now. But he came on strong at the end of last year as a
hmm.
rookie out of UVA. He's a really good player that has some insane kind of underlying numbers. He was elite versus zone and man last year, like super elite efficiency wise against both of those. So he kind of profiles as an X receiver, which when you look at the Green Bay wide receiver core, you have a Christian Watson who crushes man. He's speed, but he actually has not done well against zone. And he might be more of like a screens and deep balls guy. You have a Romeo Dubs who's like kind of like a he's kind of like an X, but he's been pretty poor against man. He's been more of a zone beater guy. And then you have a Jaden Reed who's very much a slot guy. He's a great player and very electric with the ball in his hands, but they don't have like a true X. And I think Green Bay is going to have a good passing offense, but it's a little bit of a wide receiver by committee thing. You don't know who's going to be the guy. And I think it's very possible that Dontavian Wicks becomes the guy because he can do it all.
Yeah, that's definitely a second year guy to keep your eye on. We haven't talked much about this, but you got to have a defense on your team unless you're a no defense league. When do you like to grab your defenses?
I've pretty much always just been a stream defense guy. I
Yeah,
don't
yeah,
bother. Like,
yeah.
I feel like the second I get a good defense, I'm like, oh, nice. I got Baltimore's defense. And I'm like, okay, who are we playing this week? Oh, we're playing like the Bengals. Like, I don't want to play a defense against Joe Burrow.
Yeah,
Like,
I agree. I mean, I think taking one in the last round is fine. Streaming a defense is
yeah,
fine. Who are the good defenses this year that you'd like to get on your board?
yeah. I mean, obviously, like the top 10 names of the defense are like the 49ers, Ravens, Browns, like all very good defenses. The defense I've actually been targeting this year is the Seahawks. You will find them down as 17th in ADP.
Yeah, with new
As far as
defensive
defenses
coach.
go,
Yeah,
week one, they play the Broncos. Week two, they play the Patriots. That's all I care about. I'll find somebody else for week three. I'll take those two matchups to start, and we'll move on.
I like it. Yeah, down the board, I like the Giants. They're 15th on the board. I think they're gonna, despite how
Yeah,
bad the team is, actually be a good defense.
yeah.
All
That's an
right.
elite defensive line too.
Before we let everyone get to drafting in this last week here, what's your golden rule of fantasy football?
My golden rule is just know your format. I mean, there's all these different things that
Yeah.
show ADPs and show exactly where everybody's drafting people. That's only relevant if you're drafting to whatever they're playing. Like, know if you're playing PPR or non PPR. Know if you have 6 point passing
Yeah,
touchdowns or
know
four
your
point passing
rules.
touchdowns. Know if your tight ends get 1.5 points for a PPR or something like that, because that makes a huge difference in where you can draft guys. And I promise you that all your league mates probably might not be drafting to that. So that's where you can, make your difference. That's where you can find your edge over the people you're going against. So just know the rules, know basically your scoring system and play to that.
Yeah. I guess my golden rule of fantasy is don't be a rankings whore. I think that comes from the league. Just because a guy is ranked 18th ADP and another guy is ranked 24th ADP doesn't mean that that's a worse choice in your spot. So don't just fall victim to this guy's ranked better at this moment. I'm taking him. I think it's easy to do sometimes when you start panicking there. When the seconds start ticking down in your draft.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
All right. That was episode 3 of season 2. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at screenplay_podcast. New episodes out Wednesday at 8 a.m. on your favorite streaming platform. Don't forget to give us 5 stars, give us a like, drop some comments. Good luck in y'all's fantasy drafts if you've had them already, if they're coming up. It's drafting time. Any last words, Andrew?
Yeah. Good luck in your drafts. Don't be afraid. DM us your team. We might even rate some teams that we see next week. So Go ahead, good luck in your drafts, and you know, compile some studs.
Yeah. Yeah, I like it. DM us. We can get a segment going, rate people's teams. I like it. All right. Until next week, we are out.